friends. Okay, so today we're covering Chapter 6, Psycho-Cybernetics, Maxwell Maltz. Chapter 6, Relax and Let Your Success Mechanism Work for You. All right, so the good news about this chapter is that a lot of it is stuff that he's already touched on. So if you were kind of paying attention, it should be a lot faster. Okay, so stress has become a popular word in our language. So he's going to start talking about anxiety, insomnia, stomach ulcers, worry, right? And he says that all of that's because you're trying to solve problems with your forebrain as opposed to your creative mechanism. So our trouble is that we ignore the automatic creative mechanism and try to do everything and solve all of our problems by conscious thought or forebrain thinking. But the forebrain cannot create. The job of the forebrain is to pose problems and to identify them, but by its very nature, it was never designed and engineered to solve the problems itself. So remember, he's saying that all of that creative comes from your subconscious, but he calls it your creative mechanism and your success mechanism. And if you're not sure about the forebrain, it's the forebrain is what we think of as I and feel our sense of identity. It's the forebrain that we exercise imagination or set goals. So that's when you're thinking. And we use the forebrain to gather information, make observations, and evaluate incoming sense data and form judgments. So that's the brain that you're using to like assess the environment and check out what's going on. Okay, so, but he says, don't be so careful, like don't be too careful. So modern man tries to do is solve all his problems by the conscious thought is what he's saying. Then he quotes this William James guy, is the Dean of American Psychologists, and he gave us a little essay called Gospel of Relaxation in 1899. So check this out. This is where the guy says that people are just way too stressed out and anxious in 1899. Okay, so this is where he says, if we wish to train our ideation, if we wish our trains of ideation and volition to be copious and varied and effective, okay, so let's read that again. If we wish our trains of ideation, so we want our ideas, right, and our volition and our will to be copious, so super abundant and varied and effective. So you want all these like awesome ideas, right? If that's what you want, then we must form the habit of freeing from them the inhibitive influence of reflection upon them. So basically thinking about them too much, of egotistical preoccupation about their results. So basically just focusing and thinking about them and giving too much of your attention and trying to force it. That's pretty much what he's getting at. So such a habit, like other habits, can be formed. Prudence and duty and self-regard, emotions of anxiety have, of course, a needful part in to play in our lives. So he's not saying just throw everything to the wind and don't think about it, but he's saying if you're going to be prudent, make sure you're doing all the homework up front. He's going to get to that, but basically think about all the pros and cons and do all of that up front before you make your decision. Because once your decision's made, that's when you just have to be like, okay, I'm committed and this is what it is, and not keep overthinking it. Okay, so those things, prudence, duty, self-regard, emotions of ambition, emotions of anxiety, they have a needful part to play in our lives. But confine them as far as possible to the occasions when you are making your general resolutions and deciding on plans of campaign, and keep them out of the details, right? So once you make this decision, so this is key, and he actually is going to repeat this 2 times in this chapter. Quote, right? This is coming from that William James, Dean of American Psychology. So a psychologist. Okay, so this is in italicized. When once a decision is reached and execution is the order of the day, dismiss absolutely all responsibilities and care about the outcome. Unclamp, in a word, your intellectual and practical machinery and let it run free. And, if I could turn the page, and the service it will do you will be twice as good. Okay, so William James, and it's from On Vital Reserves, which is from New York, Henry Holt and Company. So basically, unclamp in a word, your intellectual and practical machinery. So separate the two, let them do their job separately, and let them run free, and the service it will do you will be twice as good. Then he goes on to saying, quote, victory by surrender. So he quotes Victor, the Gifford Lectures, and James, again, this William James guy. He says that all these people that had anxieties, worries, inferiorities, guilt feelings, and and they are trying to force it to get over it by making conscious decisions. He said they found that success finally came when they gave up the struggle consciously and stopped trying to solve their problems by conscious thought. So the way to success for that was surrender, passivity, not activity, relaxation, not intentness, like not forcing it. It is but giving your private convulsive self a rest and finding that greater self there. So the self that we all have inside of us, and you have to trust it. You have to start trusting it. And then a lot of things open up for you. Okay, secretive creative thinking and creative doing. So basically everybody has this, not just writers, inventors, and other people, other creative people. So creative ideas are not consciously thought out by forebrain thinking, but come automatically, spontaneous, and somewhat like a bolt out of the blue when the conscious mind has let go of the problem and is engaged in thinking of something else. These creative ideas do not come willy-nilly without some preliminary conscious thought about the problem. So all evidence points to the conclusion that in order to receive the inspiration or a hunch, the person must first of all be intensely interested in solving a particular problem or securing a particular answer. So again, he's going to get back down to, you got to do all of your homework up front. All of the what if this, what if that, what are all of my options? If you don't know all of your options, research them, because once you make that decision, you have to be committed to just saying, okay, it's going to work itself out, and let your creative mind start doing that. Also, you have to be intensely interested in finding the solution so that your creative mechanism can be working on it subconsciously. If you aren't interested in it, it's not going to take it for real. It's not going to take you serious. Okay, so intensely interested in solving a particular problem or securing a particular answer. And above all, he must have a burning desire to solve the problem. Like, it has to be something you really, really want. And then trust yourself that you're going to figure it out. Ideas, so now he has this other guy, Lennox Riley Lohr, the National Broadcasting Company, so NBC. For him, he said, ideas, I find, come most readily when you are doing something that keeps the mind alert without putting too much strain upon it. So when that guy was shaving, driving a car, sawing a plank of wood, fishing, hunting, or whatever, or engaging in stimulating conversation, then he'd get all of these like, oh, aha moment ideas. And then let's see. So basically, this other guy, chief research at General Electric, C.G. Suits, he said all of his hunches came during a period of relaxation right after he did a period of intense thinking and fact gathering. So you got to do homework upfront. That's what your cognitive forebrain is supposed to do, get all the information from your environment. But your creative mechanism is the one you're supposed to trust to be solving these problems. And then also Bertrand Russell would say he would give orders, so to speak, that the work was to proceed underground. So like he would do all the homework up front and he'd be like, okay, and he'd give orders to his subconscious and be like, okay, take care of it. And then just kind of leave it at that. Okay, you are a creative worker. So the mistake we make is assuming that the process of unconscious cerebration, so basically thinking, is reserved for writers, inventors, and creative workers. We all have the same success mechanism within us. So don't think that other people can do it. We all can do it. Okay, and then he was saying this, another thing he noted was skill in any performance consists in not in painfully and consciously thinking out each action as it is performed, but in relaxing and letting go, letting the job do itself through you. Creative performance is spontaneous and natural as opposed to self-conscious and studied. So basically, he talks about piano players or athletes. They practice so much and they get it, but then they let it flow through them. That's when they flip over to letting it happen naturally. So like, you know, look at Kobe Bryant or look at any of these basketball people who would put in tons of hours and they'd work on the mechanics and they'd get it to the point where it was a habit and it felt good. But then even after they had like an amazing job, or sorry, amazing game, they'd be like, I was in the flow. And if you've ever played sports or played piano or done something where you can relate to that, I was in the flow, then you get it. And things just come naturally. And you're in the right places at the right time. And even when you're not in the right places at the time, you end up at the right places in the right time and things work out. So it's a matter of playing with it. He was able to become a skilled performer only when he reached the point where he could cease conscious effort and turn the matter of playing over to the unconscious habit mechanism, which is part of the success mechanism. Okay, and then don't jam your creativity machinery. So conscious effort inhibits and jams automatic creative mechanism. And so he's saying you can only feed it one job at a time. He's going to get to that. Well, actually, no, he's getting to that right now. Yeah, he's saying basically don't force 20 million things. Like, figure out exactly, this is where you start listing priorities. Like, what do you really want to accomplish? You can't be scatterbrained about these things. You have to like really have, remember, we always come back to focus on what you really, really want. Make sure you know exactly what you really, really want. Okay. If these people could let go, stop trying, not care, and give no thought to the matter of their behavior, they could act creatively, spontaneously, and be themselves. So it's when you force everything and you want it to come in a certain package. Okay, so now he's got 5 rules for freeing your creative machinery. Number 1, do your worrying before you place your bet, not after the wheel starts turning. So he knew this guy who like really liked roulette, and he goes and he quotes him the William James. So this is where he quotes it again. So this is actually pretty big, and you should spend some time thinking about it, because I know I did. Okay, so the effect that emotions of anxiety have their place in planning and decide upon a course of action. But that once a decision is reached and execution is the order of the day, dismiss absolutely all responsibility and care about the outcome. Unclamp, in a word, your intellectual and your practical machinery and let it run free. And then remember, he said, and then you're going to get better results than you ever would have imagined. So basically, the guy who likes roulette, he would watch other people and they'd place their bets with, if they didn't have a worry or concern about figuring out the odds of what it was, but then they'd totally like start freaking out and worrying at the table, right? This is in Las Vegas. And so then he realized, if they want to worry or be concerned or figure the odds, the time to do that is before the decision is made and before the bet is placed. And there's something you can do about it then by like thinking about it more, getting more research and more options. But you can figure out the best odds possible, or you can decide not to take the risk at all. Like, you can make all those decisions with your cognitive brain. But after the bets are placed and the wheel starts turning, you might as well relax and enjoy it, because you can't change any, and the worrying isn't going to help. Thinking about all of it is not going to do one bit of good, and that is wasted energy. So I do all my worrying, all my forebrain thinking before a decision was made, and that after making a decision and setting the wheel in motion, I would dismiss absolutely all care or responsibility about the outcome. And then he started saying his business started getting better, his relationships started getting better. He basically wasn't micromanaging everything and trying to over control everything. I have discovered that much nervousness and anxiety is caused by mentally trying to escape or run away from something that you've decided to go through with physically. So you make a commitment like, yes, I'm going to do this, but then mentally you're trying to run away. So if something you have decided to go through with physically, if the decision is made to go through with it, not to run away physically from it, then mentally keep considering you're hoping for escape mentally, that's going to mess you up. So he says, then I decided that if the decision was to go along physically, I might as well go along mentally and dismiss all thoughts of resistance. And then he actually started feeling much calmer, happier, peaceful, like getting rid of the worry and the anxiety, right? Okay, number 2, form the habit of consciously responding to the present moment. You're going to hear this a lot where people say, be in the present, be in the moment, be in the present, be in the moment. It comes back to the same thing, same thought. Consciously practice the habit of taking no anxious thought for tomorrow by giving all your attention to the present moment. Your creative mechanism cannot function or work work tomorrow. So basically, you can only do things today. You can prepare for tomorrow, like you can have things set up, but you can't live tomorrow today, okay? It can only function in the present, today. Make long-range plans for tomorrow, but don't try to live in tomorrow or in the past. Creative living means responding to and reacting to the environment spontaneously. So what's actually happening here now in your environment? Your creative mechanism can respond appropriately and successfully to present environment only if you have your full attention upon present environment and give it information concerning what's happening now. So your forebrain is supposed to be like looking at everything, checking it all out, feeding that information in. Your creative mechanism is supposed to be spontaneously reacting to the information you're giving it. Let's see. Your creative mechanism will react appropriately in the now if you pay attention to what is happening now. It will do the same tomorrow. It cannot react successfully to what may happen, but to what is happening. So it's very key that you actually respond or take in what is actually happening right now and not just make things up in our mind. And you're going to get to that in a second too. Okay, so there's another guy, Dr. William Osler. He says, so he lives in daylight compartments. So basically, he tells his students to don't look forward or backwards by 24 hours. Just stay in a 24-hour cycle and live today as best as you can. And he wrote an essay named A Way of Life, in which he describes the advantages of this habit. And it's William Osler, A Way of Life, Harper and Brothers, New York. Okay, and then they quote Alcoholics Anonymous. So they use the same principle when they say, don't try to stop drinking forever. Merely say, I will not drink today. You want to make sure that you're thinking in a way that you are not overwhelming yourself, because he actually points out that we do that to ourselves. Stop, look, and listen. Practice becoming more consciously aware of your present environment and the sights and the sounds and the colors and what are you taking for granted, and consciously practicing looking and listening and feeling objects, and how long have you felt the pavement below your feet. Like, start actually paying attention to what's going on. And then as you keep doing that, you're going to be more aware of what's happening now and attempting to respond only to what's happening now. And it has magical results as far as relieving the jitters. So he's talking about worry, stress, anxiety, all that stuff, right? That a lot of people have. Okay, what is there here and now that I should respond to that I can do something about? So if you can't do something about it, that's going to be another issue. But what's actually happening right now, and don't be making stuff up, or don't be guessing completely of what's happening around, like actually take an evaluation of what's happening. Keep consistently in mind that the job of your creative mechanism is to respond appropriately to present environment here and now. Many times, if we do not stop and think about this, we continue to react automatically to some past event. We do not react to the present moment and the present situation, but to some similarly event out of the past, okay? In short, we do not react to the reality, but to a fiction. Okay, and then he says, do not fight straw man out of the past. So here's a good example. Jittery, anxious, he's talking about this one guy that came to him, he's a patient. He got jittery and anxious at any time that he had to go to like groups of people. So like business meeting, theaters, church, any formal gathering, he would get jittery and anxious. And without realizing it, he was attempting to react to some environment out of his past where groups of people was a significant factor. So what they find out is, in his childhood, elementary, he had a cruel teacher, and this kid, when he was a kid, he was a man now, but he wet his pants, and this cruel teacher puts him up in the front of the classroom and totally humiliates him. And so now he reacts with feelings of humiliation and shame, but it comes out in jittery and anxious and all that kinds of other feelings, right? So he's basically acting as if he's still that 10-year-old schoolboy, and that all these people are his elementary class, and that the group leader is going to be the cruel school teacher. And when he finally came to that realization, he's like, oh, no, we can break that pattern. That's not valid anymore. And other typical examples are women who respond to every man she meets as if he were some individual out of her past. So if someone screws you over dating, and then you meet a new guy and they do something and you're not actually reacting to what they did, but you're imagining or remembering something from your past and you totally like take it out on them, that's not cool. That's not fair. And then they said the example for the men, I'm sure the men do it too, but the man who reacts to every person in authority as if he were some individual in authority out of his past. So I guess maybe they have an issue with authority. I don't know. Okay, number 3, try to do only one thing at a time. So another cause of confusion is the resulting feelings of nervousness, hurry, and anxiety, and the absurd habit of trying to do too many things at one time. So basically what they coined, I guess, multitasking, and all of us were supposed to be doing multitasking. But over time, they've proved that that's actually pretty ineffective and not good because it burns you out. Maybe short periods of time, maybe you have to do a lot of things, but just be careful with that whole multitasking thing. When we feel jittery or worried or anxious and thinking about the great amount of work that lies ahead, the jittery feelings are not caused by the work, but by our mental attitude, which is, I ought to be able to do this all at once. So it's something that's actually in your head that's making you more stressed out about the stuff you're supposed to be doing than if you actually just started doing it one at a time. The truth is we can only do one thing at a time. It's a simple and obvious truth, and it enables us mentally to stop trying to do all the things at one time and concentrate our awareness on the responsiveness of what we are doing now. So let's see. Dr. James Gordon Gilkey preached a sermon in 1944 called Gaining Emotional Poise. And it was reprinted in Reader's Digest. And basically he said, through his many years of counseling, the main causes of breakdown, worry, and all sorts of other personal problems with this bad mental habit of feeling that you should be able to do many things at once. But it's not the job, but the way we insist upon thinking about the job that causes the trouble. So again, stressing out that you're supposed to be able to accomplish it all at once, when in fact you can really only do one thing at a time. So he comes up with there seems to be a dozen different things pressing upon us at any given moment, but this mental picture is entirely false. So even the busiest crowded hours come to us one moment at a time. So you have a day jam-packed full of stuff, but each thing happens one moment at a time. So he came up with visualizing an hourglass and the grains of sands dropping through one by one. And this mental picture will bring emotional poise, just as the false mental picture will bring emotional unrest. So basically, he's saying tackle one thing at a time and don't overwhelm yourself with 20 different things you have to do. Like, make a priority, make a list, make something fun, make sure you reward yourself as you're doing it and going through it. That's positive reinforcement for yourself. Okay. Number 4, sleep on it. So put off making a decision until you've had a chance to sleep on it if you're having a problem wrestling with it all day. Remember that your creative mechanism works best when there is not too much interference from your conscious, the conscious I, right? In sleep, the creative mechanism has an ideal opportunity to work independently of conscious interference if you have previously started the wheels turning. So basically, put in all that thought up front, I know that this is it, these are all of my things, and you make your decision, and then you focus on what the outcome is. What do you really want? The middle part, you don't have to be as clear on, because that's what your subconscious mind, your creative mechanism is going to work for and give you that aha moment, and you're going to be like, there it is, that's the solution. Okay. And she was talking about her husband, and he'd go over in his mind the things which he hoped to accomplish next day, jobs he wanted to do, and problems he hoped to solve. So that was the wife explaining to what her husband did. And then another guy, and you all know this, Henry Cobbs, he started his own business with a $10 bill, and then he had a multi-million-dollar company, fruit order business in North Miami, Florida. But he keeps a notebook by his bedside to jot down creative ideas immediately upon wakening. So like, even if you get up in the middle of the night to go drink water, to go check a noise, whatever, keep that notebook, because if you're dreaming something and you can start writing it down, you might surprise yourself with some of the ideas you came up with. But I'm telling you, from my past experience, I forget them not long after I'm like awake for real. But later on, I'll read some of the stuff that I jotted down the night before, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So, and he actually quoted a bunch of other examples from people, but you should get this. You got that. You don't need to hear that. Relax while you work. So this is number 5. So in chapter 4, you learned how to induce physical and mental relaxation while resting. Continue with the daily practice in relaxation until you become more and more proficient. In the meantime, you can induce something of that relaxed feeling and the relaxed attitude while going about your daily activities if you will form the habit of mentally remembering the nice relaxed feeling you induced. So remember how we had to like lie in the bed and imagine all these things. What the heck? Imagine all these things that would make you, help you relax, and everyone is going to have a different way of doing that. Now he's saying, remember those relaxed feelings while you're working during the day. Stop occasionally during the day. It only takes a moment, and remember in detail the sensations of relaxation. Mentally repeating to yourself several times, I feel more and more relaxed. Basically, that's going to like cut down anxiety and worry and stress. You're going to get into that more relaxed state. Your subconscious mind, your success mechanism is going to be able to like give you spontaneous ideas that are going to help you get things done better than you would have thought if you were just forcing it. It reduces fatigue, and by how much you'll be amazed at how much you're better able to handle situations. For by relaxing and maintaining a relaxed attitude, you remove those excess states of concern, tension, and anxiety, which interfere with the efficient operation of your creative mechanism. So that's pretty much it. But basically, let's see. So number 1, do your worrying before you place your bet, not after the wheels start turning. So do all the homework up front. 2, form the habit of consciously responding to the present moment. Make sure you're taking it all in and don't be like remembering stuff from the past and taking it on people in your present. 3, try to do only one thing at a time. Give it your full attention. Number 4, if you have a problem or something that you want to work on, sleep on it. And number 5, relax while you work. If you can relax, then you're going to be better able to get into a flow. If you're super uptight and stressed out, you're never going to get into the flow. So I hope everyone has a super fantastic day, and do something today that your future self will be thankful you did.